Hello everybody and welcome back once more to Mass Effect 3. I promised you one more episode where I give a more detailed verdict on the game in general and maybe the trilogy as a whole. So yeah, here I am. I jumped back into Mass Effect 3 for one last time. Oh well, probably not for the last time, since I may be doing a little bit more multiplayer in the future. As some of you know, we had a session a few days ago on Saturday, and I played a bit of multiplayer with some of my viewers, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I really sucked at it. Like, honestly, I was always like the one with the lowest points, which I blame on my underspec and under-equipped character. And obviously, I'm going to improve, once I got a little bit of practice. But yeah, I may be doing that again, so I guess I will announce it in my daily video and on my Twitter. And if you already added me on Origin, I may just, send you an invite if you're online at that time and see if you're available. So if you wanna, have some multiplayer matches with me in the future, you need to add me on Origin. I put my Origin name in my info page of my channel, so you can go there and look it up. But yeah, let's talk about the game. First of all, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my little rock song title challenge. It wasn't as difficult as I feared it would be. Although there were a few episodes that were kind of difficult to name, especially those that didn't really have a common theme and were just random bits of cutscenes with companions or side quests. But I think overall I did pretty well, and there is a playlist with all the songs that I used as titles for this Let's Play on my channel page at the very bottom in the section called Stuff. Actually, when I went to that playlist page to update it today, I noticed that one of the videos had been deleted from YouTube, and apparently there is no other video with that specific song. So I actually ended up renaming the episode so that it would be a full playlist. Cookie points for you if you figure out which episode. You probably won't though. It was a very, very early episode, so I don't think you'll remember the original title of that episode. Anyway, let's not talk about this now. Let's talk about the game. And yeah, I guess we need to start by talking about the end once more. I mean, I talked about it a lot in my final episode, but now I have actually seen the other endings. I didn't actually play them myself. I just went to YouTube and watched a video for the different endings. I watched the Thetis ending. I watched the Control ending both for Paragon and the Renegade Shepherd, and I watched the Refusal ending. And I do know that there are like different variations for some of the endings. Like if you have a really low war asset score, first of all, you only get to pick Destroy in the first place, and it will have some really devastating consequences, like blowing up Earth and other horrible stuff. So it's not a nice ending if you have too few war assets. And after a while you unlock Control, and there are different variations of Control. And finally you unlock Synthesis, which kind of confirms my suspicion that Synthesis is supposed to be like the best ending, the one that you have to work for the most, whereas Destroy is supposed to be the least optimal ending, the one that you get, right from the get-go, even though with a low war asset it is quite different from the ending that you get with a high war asset score. Because, like I said in the last episode, it wasn't really such a horrible ending. I mean, yeah, there was some damages, but they repaired the Citadel, they repaired the Mass Effect relays, and everybody seemed to be fairly happy. The only, downside is that you had to sacrifice the other synthetic life forms to get it. But the state of the universe itself wasn't so bad afterwards. So I actually was I was surprised that it ended up being that good. Um, also, I guess it is kind of underwhelming that all of your decisions that you made in this game and through the last two games, they are essentially being converted into a number, and then they get added, and then you get your war asset score, and the war asset score determines what options you have and how the options will play out. I guess that is a little bit lazy, because it's not the actual decision or the content of the decision that counts. It's just a mathematical value. So they made it very easy on themselves in that regard, I guess. I have to admit though, it doesn't bother me that much. I I see why they did this. It's, well, a lot easier than to actually, have different endings for all your different decisions that you made. And I mean, I suppose the epilogue does change slightly according to some of your decisions. At least that much is true. So yeah, while it wasn't the best way to deal with this, I don't have a huge issue with it. Um, as you know, one thing that I have a huge issue with was just the way the final decision was presented, because I think by doing it the way they did, they kind of diminished the gravity of the decision. Because um, it didn't feel like, if you wanted to roleplay it, it didn't feel like you were going to make an unbiased decision. I think the Reaper Ghost Child was just a profoundly bad idea. Um, so there is, I mean, if you just look at the different options, such as they are, there is an interesting philosophical core to it. And there is an interesting dilemma to it that you have to ask yourself, what kind of galaxy do I want to leave behind? Um, and what would be the best galaxy to live in? And if we're being honest, Eris didn't really, engage in that decision, because she wasn't thinking about, what kind of galaxy do I want future generations to live in, and what price am I willing to pay for that. She was basically just thinking, which of these options is actually going to work. So she was essentially avoiding the decision and was just counting the odds. She didn't really, ask her the question that I think the developers wanted you to ask yourself. And I think the writers have themselves to blame for that, because, like I said, they presented two of the three decisions in a way that they could be, questioned, because of the three decisions, one was basically proposed by an indoctrinated, power-hungry madman, and the other one was proposed by a most likely faulty genocidal AI. So, without the possibility to verify the information that you get here, the source from which it comes is obviously important, and it kinda destroys the credibility of two of three possible options here. So if you go for the approach that I took here, it's almost a little bit like a refusal light, because you refuse to, make that decision. You just do what you wanted to do in the first place. That's basically what Eris did. I mean, she came there to destroy the Reapers, and essentially she said, you know what, kid, I'm not going to play your stupid shell game here. I'm not going to make this decision. I came here to destroy Reapers, and that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't know if any of what you say is true, so just, stow your crap and go to hell. It just so happened that, destroying the Reapers was one of the options that you were offered, but she didn't really, engage in the decision that she was supposed to. So I guess it is sort of a refusal. um, but I think it's not what the writers intended. They wanted you to think about the consequences and to think about what sort of galaxy would be the best to live in. And I suppose I kind of avoided that whole problem. And interestingly enough, I think if Eris Shepherd could have been sure that the different options all work, I think she may actually have picked a different option. Um, as ironic as it is, I think she may have considered to use control, begrudgingly, very begrudgingly, but just, as, I don't know, the best compromise between, not sacrificing some, in this case the synthetics, for, the survival of the organics, but at the same time without having to alter the very fabric of life itself, because that's a pretty huge thing, and she doesn't really understand how this was supposed to work, and I think she didn't really think that it was her place to make that kind of a huge decision. That is different from any other decision that she had to make before, because that was basically creating a new life form. So I think she would have shied away from that. And I guess not wanting to destroy the Geth and the other synthetic life forms, she would have taken control as a compromise, the one option that allows you to save everyone without actually changing who they are. And I mean, once you take control of the Reapers, you could conceivably still destroy them, right? So we don't really know what she could do. I mean, the epilogue doesn't indicate that, but the epilogues in general are sort of vague. They don't really give you that much info on how the future galaxies are going to look like. Although, as far as I understand, the original ending didn't have the epilogues at all, so you were left completely clueless as to what your decision caused, which I agree would have been a very, very bad ending. So if that's the case, I can understand why people were upset with the original ending of the game. But yeah, if the whole decision was set up differently, I think Eris Shepherd may have picked a different option. So I think it was not a good idea by the writers to bring in the Reaper Ghost Child. Because, I mean, seriously, the Reaper Ghost Child, it may have chosen to look like, an innocent kid, but it doesn't really change the fact that this is still the same entity that controls the Reapers. So every time you interacted with them, like with Sovereign or Harbinger or any other Reaper, it was by proxy the Reaper Ghost Child. And every time you had to suffer through their smug, arrogant, just shut up and die like a good organic attitude, it was a Reaper Ghost Child. And just because it looks like, an innocent child now and pretends to be all nice and wanting to help us doesn't really change that. So, yeah, Reaper Ghost Child, bad idea. I think they should have found a different way to set up the decisions that made them all, I guess, more neutral. For example, I don't know, maybe an ancient VI of the person who came up with the Crucible in the first place. Not the most original approach, but I guess it would have worked. Like, you activate the Crucible and the VI, which, was part of the plans, shows up and basically tells you what the Crucible is capable of doing without, advertising one specific option, just showing you what's possible and, the pros and cons of each option, and then you have to make a decision. And I think that would have made the whole thing more difficult. So I think that would have been an option, some Prothean VI that shows up, kind of like a really, really old tutorial that pops up and says, "It looks like you're trying to destroy the Reapers. Would you like any help?" I don't know. This is just a suggestion. I just think they would have needed to find a better way to present the options without, having it come from the very entity responsible for all of this. That being said, Now that I have watched the other endings, I can see how each of them has, advantages and obvious disadvantages. So I wouldn't say there is one perfect or one best ending. And judging from my comment sections of the last episode, um, I would say that a great number of people like the Destroy ending best, but there were certainly other people that, preferred other endings. Now, when I look at the Control ending, for example, first of all, I do like the fact that it has a different ending for a Paragon and a Renegade Shepherd. Even though it is, of course, a little bit oversimplifying, because it reduces the character again to some, binary opposition, Paragon, Renegade, and nothing in between. And I mean, Aris Shepherd would have gotten the Paragon ending, because she was like, I don't know, let's have a look at her. I don't know, 70% Paragon and maybe 30% Renegade. But, I mean, the gray areas, they would kind of, they aren't really considered in those two endings. So, I mean, 30% Renegade is not a little amount of Renegade. So that's basically the Aris Shepherd that put a gun in Conrad Werner's face for being so annoying, or that, likes to scream at people and likes to shove guns at people. And, I mean, for the most part, those were people who deserved it. But if you think about these qualities, or these, I mean, Aris Shepherd has her flaws and her less good qualities, and if you think about these qualities transferred into some godlike entity who thinks it's okay to be a little bit rougher to those who deserve it, it's, I don't know. I don't know if you would like that. So, while gameplay-wise she would have gotten the Paragon ending, you have to ask yourself, what about her Renegade qualities? How would they manifest themselves in this situation? And I have to say anyway that even the Paragon Control ending, while it was a good ending and, people were living a good life and stuff like that, there was a certain disconcerting quality to it. There was something that kind of made you cringe a little bit, even in the Paragon, but specifically in the Renegade ending, where you had to ask yourself, how long is this going to go well? Or will Shepard become, some evil dictator at some point? Which would actually be kind of funny, especially if you play a Renegade Shepard and then she becomes the evil galactic overlord. I don't know. I do like the fact, however, that they, have two different endings for Paragon and Renegade. So, while the Control ending, again, wasn't really that bad, and, it has the benefit of saving everyone, and not just the organics, there were some dark shadows lurking somewhere in those epilogues. So it was interesting, but something to think about. And as for the Synthesis ending, I have to admit that I didn't really like it that much. I think that it was indeed supposed to be like the best ending, where, everyone was getting along and people were, becoming immortal and all of that. I honestly thought that for once it was a little bit too corny, down to the fact that the husk suddenly became human again or something. I mean, seriously, that was a little bit over the top. So now, people are living happily ever after with their husk husband or whatever. I don't know. But more to the point, the ending, the epilogue doesn't do a very good job explaining why exactly things are so great all of a sudden. I mean, okay, so we are suddenly all synthesized and we are all like partially organic and synthetic, and somehow this is going to solve all of our problems. I mean, I can suspend belief enough to say, okay, I accept that the magic space beam is somehow turning our life in the universe into this hybrid. But why being this hybrid makes us suddenly all get along, I don't really see that. I guess they kind of said that, we understand each other better now. But um, I already mentioned that, in my opinion, the real problem that, caused most of the hostilities in our galaxy was not the conflict between organics and synthetics. And synthesis is supposed to solve that problem. But if you look at the history of this galaxy, the real cause of problem was always hostilities between different organic species. That was a much bigger problem than the organic-synthetic conflict. So I guess I'm just supposed to believe that the synthesis solved that as well, in some form. But it doesn't really explain how. I'm just supposed to believe that, we are all half brats now, and now we all like each other, or whatever. But yeah, I feel that specifically an ending as complex and different as the synthesis ending would have required a little bit more explanation. I mean, I remember that the Reaper Ghost Child said something about it's the ideal solution because synthetics seek perfection through understanding. I can't speak to that. Maybe that's so. But he also said that organics seek perfection through technology. And to that I can only reply, says who? That seems to be a pretty bold claim to make. I mean, I didn't realize that there's some sort of agreed upon desire of all organics to become perfect by using technology. So the Reaper Ghost Child just makes this claim and doesn't really elaborate on it, and just like so many things in the Reaper Ghost Child's explanation, I'm just supposed to take it at face value. Okay, so you organics, you want to be perfect, and you want to do so by using technology. Okay, whatever you say, boy. So there are just so many questions in regards to the synthesis ending that are left unanswered, and I guess we are just supposed to fill them in ourselves. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really particularly like it because it was so vague, and I was just supposed to believe that somehow this is going to solve all our problems. But I can understand the appeal that the ending has, because it is very utopian, and this may appeal to some people, although I have to say personally I'm always very skeptical and distrustful of utopias, because I believe that it is important that people are able to choose which way they want to go, and that people have choices in their life and can make these choices. However, you can't have choice if you don't have the option of making the wrong choice or the bad choice. So I think a universe where you have choice will always be a universe that is sort of imperfect, because people always have the possibility of making wrong choices. So I'm kind of wary of a world that is supposed to be perfect, because it kind of requires everyone to make the right choices. And I don't think how that's going to happen unless we are being, fundamentally changed. And I guess this is what the synthesis is supposed to do. But do we want this? Do we want ourselves to be changed in ways we don't understand? Yeah, like I said, I didn't feel too good about the synthesis ending, to be to be perfectly honest. And I think that's why Eris wouldn't pick it, because first of all, she doesn't believe that she should be making that huge of a decision. Of course, choosing destroy means that she, makes a decision to destroy an entire race, which is also pretty big. But I think it doesn't compare to changing the essence of all life in the universe in a way that she doesn't even understand. So yeah, I think if she really had to make a choice and she believed that all of the options are true, she may go for control. I think she wouldn't go for refusal. Maybe let's talk about the refusal ending as well. I have to say, what I liked about the refusal ending was the little monologue that Shepard delivered. That was a pretty cool speech. I will say that. Also, bringing back the whole time capsule thing that Liara mentioned a while ago was a pretty neat idea too. But if you look at it, in the end, refusing to make that choice is only postponing the decision, because the next cycle is going to build a crucible and they are going to use it, so they are going to make the decision. So in the end, nothing is gained except the loss of billions, trillions of lives for no good reason whatsoever, because if you're not going to use it, the next person will. So what? You're just going to die. There's a certain level of petulance involved here. Basically, you refuse to use a crucible because you don't want to, play the Reaper's game, but you even abandon your original plan, which was to destroy the crucibles, just because it's one of the options offered to you. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? I mean, if you came there to destroy the Reapers, why would you not do it just because the Reapers actually offer it to you? So I feel your personal pride is not a sufficient enough reason to sacrifice the trillions of lives that depend on you. And I think Shepard wouldn't do this because she thinks she has a responsibility here. There are people counting on her. They want her to end this, so she has to swallow it down and she has to make a decision. Or in her case, just stick to her original plan, which, was to destroy. But I do like the fact that they included refusal. They gave Shepard a nice speech, and I guess I can see the appeal just for that speech alone. But it's a pretty big price to pay for that. And in the end, the crucible will be used one way or the other. It's basically like having a gun in your hand and you can shoot the Reapers in the face, but you say, nope, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to play along with your rules. So you just throw the gun away and the next person picks it up and they're going to shoot the Reaper in the face. But you will die and everyone you know. So it seems a little bit of a pointless ending, to be honest. But interesting thing that they included it. So yeah, that's my personal opinion on the different ending versions. Maybe another thing that I would like to talk about in the Destroy ending, if you have enough war assets, you get that little scene at the end that indicates that Shepard may still be alive. Now I do understand that for a lot of people this is, an important scene and it's comforting for them to know that, their Shepard is still alive and kicking. Personally, I could have done without that scene. For once, if it fits my character, I don't really mind, seeing them go out like that. As you know, I like, the blaze of glory moment, and if I think my character would go that way, then I'm completely fine with them dying like that. If you watched my Dragon Age Inquisition Let's Play, you may remember that I sacrificed my hawk in the Fate for the very same reason, because I thought she needs to go out like that. That's, perfect for her character. And more importantly, just like with Shepard in this case, I figured that her story was basically over, so even if she survived, there would be no more story to tell with her. There is no more, no sequel to this. So if she's basically, if her story is over one way or the other, then why not give her, this great hero's death? I do like this, and I think Aerith Shepard is the kind of person that needs to go down guns blazing or with a giant explosion. And incidentally, she actually did both. She emptied her magazine into that conduit and it caused a giant explosion. So I mean, that's just perfection. That's just beautiful. And I'm totally fine to leave it like that. So I wouldn't have needed that particular scene at the end. But if they, decide to add an ending where Shepard survives, I think they should have done more with it, like have a scene where she comes back and reunites with her companions, because that, 10-second scene, that was just lazy and sloppy and basically just an anchor for your own personal headcanon, so that you could imagine that she was still alive, but they didn't even bother to do anything with it. So I think they should have either embellished a little bit on this and gave you a proper scene of, reuniting with your loved ones, or they should have just let her die completely. So I think that one scene was kind of weird and pointless. I understand that people are happy it's there because for them it keeps their Shepard alive for their own personal headcanon, but I don't really care about that. So there's that. And yeah, I don't know, finally maybe let's discuss something that a few people brought up, the so-called indoctrination theory. Now I have to admit, I didn't have the time to watch any of those videos that were made on that theory. I just read an article that, gave me the details. And as far as I understand it, the theory is basically that when you are running towards that beam and you get hit by Harbinger, you actually, become unconscious, and everything after that is just playing out in your mind while you're being indoctrinated by the Reapers. And only choosing Destroy kind of breaks you free from that indoctrination, and that scene where Shepard wakes up in the end is actually her waking up from the indoctrination. And it's supposed to explain some, illogical situations, loophole, plot holes, whatever. However, yeah, sure, I guess it could be possible. I guess it could also be possible that the entire Mass Effect universe is actually part of the Matrix and not real in the first place. If you start to propose that part of reality isn't real, then all of reality could not be real. So it's kind of pointless to argue about that. More importantly, however, I feel that ending is kind of pointless too, because if everything that happens after, getting hit by Harbinger only happens in your mind, then you never actually went to the Citadel. The whole scene with Anderson and Mr. Man didn't happen. Your conversation with the Reaper Ghost Child didn't happen, or, well, it's just the Reapers talking into your mind or whatever. Your decision didn't happen. It happened in your mind, but you didn't actually trigger the Destroy ending if you picked Destroy, so the explosion didn't happen. The Reapers are not being destroyed. The whole epilogue didn't happen. Your companions having a memorial didn't happen. Instead, you just wake up again on Earth with the Reaper still in orbit, you are half dead, and that's the end of the game. Okay. And now what? It kind of leaves the whole game unfinished, doesn't it? Plus, it begs the question, why would the Reapers bother anyway? Why don't they just kill her? Harbinger is right there. They could just, finish her off, right? So, why would they bother to indoctrinate her in the first place? And even if they have some reason for doing so, the very moment that Shepard picks destroy and breaks free from the indoctrination, I mean, at that point she's basically sitting duck, isn't she? She's half dead, lying between Harbinger's feet, and at that point they don't have any more reason to keep her alive because they couldn't indoctrinate her. So, let's finish her off. So it is really a depressing ending, isn't it? Basically, the Reapers are not destroyed. Shepard will most likely die because Harbinger's going to kill her, and that's it. I mean, yeah, sure. I guess it could be possible, but I don't see the benefit of it, to be honest. So, I don't think I would subscribe to that theory, just for the sake of it. Anyway, I think we have spoken long enough about the ending of the game. At least I can't think of any more aspects that I think I need to discuss. So I'm going to make a quick break and get something to drink, and then we will talk about some other parts of the game. Alright, I am back, so let's talk about the rest of the game. Although, there actually is one more thing that I should probably talk about in regards to the ending. Now, before I even started this game, people already warned me about the ending and said that it's like really bad and it's kind of ruining the whole game. And now that I've seen it, I have to say, all things considered, it is not that horrible. Maybe it's just because I was expecting much worse and I have the advantage of, playing the extended cut. It is certainly underwhelming, and it's not the ending that the game deserves, I think. But I wouldn't say it's absolutely horrible either. It's not keeping me up at night. I think I can live with the ending the way it is. It's an okay ending. But, it was a great game, so I think it should have been a great ending, and in the end it was, it fell a little bit short of the rest of the game. But I wouldn't say that it ruined the game or that it is absolutely terrible, but just slightly disappointing. I think that the developers that were trying to go for something really ambitious, they wanted to have an ending that is kind of unusual and, some sort of twist and have some philosophical core to it and whatnot. But then they just half-assed it and it just didn't work out. There were, plot holes, and half of what the Reaper child said barely made any sense. I would imagine that it made even less sense if you played it before the Leviathan DLC came out. So I think they probably would have fared better if they went for a more conventional ending, just kill the damn Reapers and then have a proper epilogue, not just a slideshow but some real cutscenes, and make a lot of different scenes for the epilogue that depend on the choices that you made throughout the game or the whole trilogy, so that you feel that your choices actually mattered and were not just, converted into some number. I think that probably would have been better received, Don't try weird experiments with the ending, just, give the people what they want, and I think most people just wanted to see the Reaper dead, so give them that. And then, give them a proper, longer, well-made epilogue to show how your decisions affected the universe post Reaper. I think that would have worked out perfectly. No need for some deep philosophical questions and decisions at the end that were, really badly presented and didn't make a whole lot of sense on occasion. So that's my opinion about the ending. I can live with the ending the way it is, but it could have been better. So, while the ending was certainly underwhelming, I don't think that it ruined the game. As a matter of fact, I would say that Mass Effect 3 is probably my favorite game of the trilogy. Because up until the ending, there isn't really much that I can say about the game that I didn't like. I think until then it was a really, really great game. So, it had those great, epic, emotional scenes that I really like, and it had a bunch of them. There were so many memorable scenes in this game, like Tuchanka curing the genophage, or killing the Reaper on Rannoch, or just the fleet arriving through the mass relay at the final assault. So that's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy, and the kind of stuff I was kind of missing from the last game. The last game had the final mission, which was pretty epic. So in Mass Effect 2 they got the ending right, but until then, it was had a kind of weak storyline. And in this game, they had great scenes, great story elements, and then they kind of screwed up the ending a bit, which is kind of sad. So, yeah, I don't know. What else should we talk about in regards to this game? Maybe let's talk about the characters. Now, obviously, the characters were not the main focus of this game. That's what Mass Effect 2 was basically all about. So in this game, most of your companions were just, companions that returned from previous games, so they didn't really need much character building for these characters. Nevertheless, I felt that they utilized them pretty well, so even, Garrus and Tali, who had already been in 2 games as full companions, they got, sort of their place in the story. Garrus, when we went to Palavan, Tali when we dealt with the Geth and the Quarians, and Caden had the story about, Cerberus trying to take over the Citadel, where he was, heavily involved in that storyline. So, while there wasn't, the sort of personal quest that we had in Mass Effect 2, I felt that the characters were still, integrated into the story pretty well. They weren't just, there to be your companions. They actually, did something more functional in terms of the story. Which is also true for most of the new characters. James was the one character that didn't really relate that much to the main story. He was probably just there to have like one character that wouldn't that was there definitely, and that wasn't dead from previous games, because Garrus could have been dead, Tali could have been dead. I suppose Liara would also definitely be alive. And while Caden could be dead, if he was dead, then you would have Ashley instead. But as far as I know, they can die during this game, so they needed some core companion group that wouldn't die prematurely, I suppose. But I think, given the task of introducing a new character that late in the series, and in a game where they didn't really have the time to grow his character, they did a decent job with James, I think. I thought he was a tiny bit stereotypical at times, but, I liked him well enough. And even though he didn't have, like, his own personal mission, like, I didn't have to go and fix his daddy issue, which I think he actually had. I remember him talking about his father at some point, but I didn't have to deal with that, because obviously I had other priorities in this game. I think he still grew into a well-rounded character, all things considered. So I liked him. I liked him, even though he was a bit bit of a stereotype at times. The other, well, I suppose 2 new characters, if we want to count Edie, who is not exactly new because she was introduced in Mass Effect 2, but now she's an actual companion. Now, Edie's role was pretty important, because given how the game ended, and given how the great choice at the end turned out to be about organic and synthetic life, I guess her character was important and needed to give you a better insight on how synthetic life might look like. You had the Geth in Mass Effect 2, but I guess that role was mostly filled by Edie in this game, and watch her grow as a character, and probably to make you feel a little bit bad about choosing the destroy ending, which is definitely one of the sad parts of picking that particular option. So I think of the new characters, she definitely got the best character arc in this game, and I really enjoyed that a lot. And yes, then we had Javik, who I think was a DLC character, which is kind of weird because he felt like, important enough for the story that he should have been included by default. So, it's kind of strange that they would keep that out of the main game, but I suppose they wanted to make more money from it, so yeah, that kind of sucks. I mean, at first I thought that Javik had, surprisingly little character development. He was, always the sort of belligerent Machiavellian warrior, and he had a very set opinion on certain things. But towards the end, he seemed to open up a little bit, and he actually, offered you his hand, which he didn't do before, and stuff like that. So there was some development towards the end, and I think Javik's character was interesting because it was a nice contrast to see how the previous cycle dealt with the Reapers and to see how they failed fighting them, because the Protheans had a completely different approach to uniting the galaxy. They did it by force, and when the Reapers attacked, that unity fell apart, and in the end there was no more unity in fighting the Reapers, and that may have been one of the reasons why they failed despite their superiority and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think he gave you an interesting perspective into different approaches of fighting the Reapers, I suppose. And yeah, I think those were the new characters, and we had some returning characters who I already talked about. So I think it was a much smaller squad than in the previous game, but it got the job done. I think it was big enough, and even with this small of a squad, I felt that I wasn't using some of them as often as I should. I always try to rotate my companions and give each and every one a chance to, get some fighting time. But even with a squad this small, I feel that some have been kind of underused. I'm looking at you, James, but I mean James suffers the fate of most of the characters that happen to be the same class as my own character, because I tend to not use them as often. Anyway, let's talk about something else. Maybe the gameplay in general, which is something that I really enjoyed in this game. Now, the gameplay, the combat system of the first game was still very clunky. So I think I never actually went past normal difficulty level in that particular game. They vastly improved this in the second game, but they made it even better for this one. It felt, the cover system was still a little bit wonky, but it was much better than previously. And after a while, you got kind of used to the wonkiness. What I liked in particular were the increased number of combinations. You had them in Mass Effect 2, but I think it was a pretty limited deal, limited to like a few biotic combos. But in this game, you had you could have tech combos, and you could set up combos with your soldier skills and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. And I mean, my soldier shepherd didn't really have that many active skills. Most of them were ammo powers. But as you know, I more or less use my companions as well, since I have them on manual power use. So I didn't feel that like I was lacking skills due to playing a warrior, because I was triggering all the combos, and I was setting up all the combos by myself manually. So that was a lot of fun. I like that a lot. Um, and yeah, I there is really not much bad stuff that I can say about the gameplay. Um, they got rid of the neutral dialogue options, which sometimes I wish just for roleplay reasons they had been there, but I understand that they probably just got rid of it because most people didn't use them anyway. And I did like the fact that they kind of merged the Renegade and Paragon bar into one. So it's not like in previous games where you had to commit to one side if you wanted to, pass all the reputation checks, but it was basically just one reputation bar, and both Paragon and Renegade added to it. That's basically the way that I would have wanted it to be from the beginning. That was a pretty good improvement, and I think I was able to use pretty much every single charm or intimidate. So um, I definitely have no problem with the way that was set up. Um, yeah, again, I can't really say much negative stuff about this. So, I don't know, maybe a quick word on the DLC before we end this. Um, the Omega DLC maybe. The Omega DLC was basically just some fun kind of plot in regards to the plot, not really important side mission, so to speak. Kind of a callback to the second game. It was kind of cool to see Omega again and to fight alongside Arya. And we got I think our first Turian female. I think we didn't have any in the first game. But then again, in the second game we didn't have one either, and it was always kind of strange how the different races were all of one particular gender. So the Asari, they are technically genderless, but they all look female. We never saw anything but male Quarians and Turians in the first game. No, we saw only male Turians in the first game and female Quarians, namely Tali. And in the second game we finally had some male Quarians, and I think in this game we finally saw some female Turian. So that was interesting. But other than that, I mean, it was a fun DLC. It wasn't really necessary to be played, but I enjoyed it well enough. Now the Leviathan DLC was interesting. Now I'm not sure if I would have preferred to play this before or after the ending. I mean, obviously, story-wise, you kind of have to play it before the ending because it doesn't make sense afterwards when the war's over and Shepard potentially dead. So it kind of has to come first in terms of the story. But in terms of just gameplay, I could have played it afterwards, like many people did that played the game when it first came out. Because on the one hand, it does give you a much deeper insight into the Reapers and their motivation and why they're doing what they're doing. But on the other hand, it kind of gives away a lot of the ending already, and it almost feels a little bit like it's spoiling the ending already, or a lot of the stuff that was supposed to come to be revealed at the end. Then again, since the ending is kind of half-assed, I guess that reveal was kind of underwhelming in the first place. So I guess it's probably better if you play it before and you already know that stuff, so that the ending makes a little bit more sense. I don't know. I don't know how it would be like if you skip Leviathan and only play it after seeing the end. And yeah, then of course there was the Citadel DLC, which somebody has described as like pure fan service. which I don't mind because I mean, come on, that was a fun little DLC, and I mean, character writing and character interactions has always been something that BioWare has been usually pretty good at, and I think it showed in this particular DLC. It was just fun to casually hang out with your companions and see a different side of them, and I can see how it would be especially bittersweet to play this DLC after the game. When everything's over and you have like one big party at the end. So yeah, I thought it was a nice way to say goodbye to your companions and to the game as such. So just a great DLC in my opinion. And yeah, maybe some final words before I end this. Like I said, if I look at the trilogy as a whole, I would say that yeah, I think Mass Effect may be my favorite, even though the ending wasn't as good as as I hoped. Um, it is interesting how I mean Mass Effect 2 had some pretty good situations set up by its two predecessors. I mean the first game basically set the scenery and gave you a look into the lore and the world of the Mass Effect universe. And then the second game came and it basically did most of its work in terms of character building. Although arguably most of the characters that were, introduced and built in the second game only played a minor role in the third game. I mean, the only two characters from Mass Effect 2 that were actually important in this one were Mordin and Legion. And the rest, I mean, they all had their own separate stories, but you could just, cut them out of the game and they wouldn't be much different in terms of the main story. Which makes sense because all of them could be dead, so I guess that's the price that you have to pay if you introduce variables like that. They wouldn't give that much time on a character that may not even be there anymore. Although I mean they included Garrus and Tali and Mordin and Legion, who all could be potentially dead. But I guess then they had to cut down on the content for the other potentially dead companions. But it was a cool thing that they included them all again, even if just as a side character. I still believe, I think I spoke about this earlier, I still believe that the second game is a little bit of an oddball in the trilogy. It almost feels like, I think it's a great game with some weaknesses, but you feel like you're playing a different series, like it doesn't really fit in there. As a matter of fact, and I think I may have talked about this already, it feels like Mass Effect 3 is the predecessor, the successor to the first game that it originally was supposed to be. And at some point, I don't know, maybe they realized, oh, this game is actually pretty successful. Why not make it a trilogy? And then they had to come up with something to squeeze in between, because obviously if you start a game with a Reaper invasion, and want to end it with the defeat of the Reapers, then there wouldn't be much left for a third game. So they kind of had to put the whole story on hold and put something in between, and that happened to be Mass Effect 2. And it kind of feels like it doesn't really fit there. I mean, I can see why it's there. It's, a more personal game. It's more about characters, less about story, less about the bigger picture of, the Reapers and everything that's going on. But it just feels very, very different from the other two games. So it's an interesting choice to squeeze it into this trilogy. But yeah, I think I can't really think of much else to say. I don't know, if you think there's anything else that I should have discussed, then feel free to leave a comment and I will maybe reply to the comment if I find the time and give you my thoughts on that. But I think most of what I wanted to say that I did say. So I'm very happy that I played this trilogy because it was a great ride from beginning to finish, with a finish that could have been better than it was, but like I said, I can live with the way it ended. So I'm not too sour about the end of this game. And yeah, now we're going to start something entirely new again with the Witcher trilogy. I hope to see you again for that, or maybe for some future Mass Effect 3 multiplayer fun. But until then, I'm just going to say goodbye and see you again next time.